Hello everyone and welcome to a new video looking into the new pressurized gases systems, looking at how to pump in and out of contained tanks, and what are the repercussions of this new system on our old creations. So I released a video a few days ago showing how to look into the differences between the new pressurized tanks and how to use different sorts of setups, and there was an overwhelming amount of comments. They were all positive, and people brought into perspective one of the ideas that I did not consider, and that is when you have a system like this, that it does not actually connect to the exterior atmosphere even if the water level is below it. So what will happen is that this little port actually will be flooding with water because it is inside the vessel. So I went ahead and revised all of my tanks to connect to the outside world with a port. So in this case now, my actual little, I called this the ballast tank. The ballast tank in this case is connected to the outside world and not connected into the closed system, therefore allowing water. And honestly, you could see right away these two tests. The only difference is this one has the port here and this one has the port on the outside. This is the one that was filling up with the water because it was pressurized. So it does not matter if the water is down there or above that port, it will still act as the water is saturated in the entire port. So here you can see it is fully zero. So even with that one change, these two tests behaved entirely different. So we're going to run down and look into each one now with the correct way to look at it. So I apologize for the previous video. I learned something too, but as always, thank you all for the comments, the interactions, and we all learned something. So let's get going. If you watched the previous video, you could probably skip all this, but I'm going to run down it again just for the sake of the new viewers. These three tests are the same because they did not have any piping connecting to the outside world. This one just had a door that opened up. These had pumps, and this had a pump with a little filter on the bottom, or what I call the filter, but technically it's called the fluid port or fluid relief valve or gas relief valve. So in this case they had that, but the difference comes after that, where we then have new systems that are now connected to the outside world. So this tank is quite simply a ballast tank with pumps. The pumps just have ports, so they allow gas and liquid through them, but also there is sort of just a connector to the outside world. So there's no filter connecting that. It's just literally a port in and a port out. The next one does have the same system on the bottom, so the bottom pumps allow everything through it. It's just a simple port end. And however, the top uses one of these, which is, if I look at it here to show you, the gas relief valve. So in this case, this ballast tank that we call is connected to the outside world and only has a gas relief valve. Okay, so liquid should not pass through there. This one, now the pumps are different. The pumps themselves only allow liquid through them. So the liquid relief valve is down here, and the top has a gas relief valve connected to the outside world. And then we have the four setups of the pumps. So the first two are with just pumping in, pumping out, while simultaneously pumping in and pumping out. In this case, there is no filter or relief valve. And in this case, when we press the on button here, we turn the pump to pump in, and it pumps the air out at the same time. But it'll also pump water out because there is no relief valve. In this case, it's the same setup, so everything gets pumped in, and while this is pumping in, the gas only is pumping out because we now have a relief valve at the top here. And on these ones, they're the opposite system, so while we're pumping in the liquid from here, we're also pumping in this air from here, and in this case we're pumping in gas from here because it's connected to the outside world. So let's take a look at these experiments and see exactly how they're different from the original ones and what works the best. Well, in fact, the original ones are discarded because they were incorrect, and this is now the new test. Now, one thing I wish the game had was a flutter of gas. Just like how we have a liquid flutter, you could flood it with water in this case, I wish you could also remove this, because now whenever you spawn water like this, it's taking up 2/3 of this reservoir. The rest of the gas is actually now filled in this area. So what'll happen is, yeah, you have 2/3 of it being water in this case, but the full capacity of this reservoir is now in the top of this. The full air capacity is now being crushed or compressed into an area that's 1/3 its original size. Anyways, now it's the same as atmospheric pressure. We're not going to run these first tests because we know exactly what is going to happen with them. But just to show you again, when you do have a sort of a simple door, it acts as a moon pool, nothing happens. Whereas in this case, look how slow this is filling up, whereas this one's already filled. So this is using just the liquid filter or liquid relief valve. So liquid is allowed through it. In this case, everything is allowed through it, so we're actually increasing the amount of gas, whereas here it's less. So both systems work. It just seems that both do not work at the same time. Now we're pumping out, but take a look at that. That one is pressurized, so it fills up or removes faster, but they both work. So I would say that these systems are still fairly stable. They do compress the air that's inside it, so they actually fill up at a different pace. See, that one's having an issue now at the top. So I would probably, if I was only wanting to fill my chamber with the liquid, so for a ballast tank, I would probably just put one of these liquid relief valves or liquid filters, and I'd probably not use this system, to be honest, because even though it works, so technically I'll just turn on both, it works, but this to me is the better opinion. It does pump out or pump out a little faster on the other one, but close enough. So regardless, these are here, but they're the same. Now this is where it starts to get interesting. So in this case now we have just a simple pipe that's connecting to the outside world. So if we go to pump in here, you see that the liquid starts to fill. The gas is growing like crazy, which actually does not really make sense, and this does not work. So even though, so we're now pumping in from here in this chamber, and it's increasing the pressure, and now the pressure is slowly dissipating through this, I presume, but also the liquid's gone. So this is weird and wonky and does not really work. Now in this case here, we actually do have a different setup. In this case, we are only, I believe, or sorry, we have a actual filter at the top. So now only gas can come out, whereas in that one, both liquid and gas. Now in this one, just gas. So if we go to pump in, let's see what happens. Slows down a little bit at here, but you can see that the pressure is dissipating, and it continues to work. So I would say this is a green light. This system works. So in this case now, you actually are able to use just the gas relief valve, and it will now remove itself from this chamber and allowing it to fill up. What's interesting is, again, we said between these two, here we had a liquid valve, but it was closed or sealed off. So after this, I am going to actually combine these two, or maybe we haven't combined afterwards, probably the next one. So in this case, we now have actually just that. So the bottom has liquid filter only coming through these pumps, and if we go to the top of this, we have a gas relief valve here. So this should be the optimal system, in my opinion. Air is able to leave or come out to this ballast tank. At the same time here, we're only allowing water in. So let's see what happens. It's not filling up as fast as the others, but it is going. The pressure is consistent, but see, it's kind of slowing down or tapering out. Why is that happening? It could be that a sort of a vacuum situation, when you have lower than atmospheric pressure, actually lets you fill in faster. But let's see in the second run what happens. So if I go to pump it out, how fast will it leave? So as you can see, we're now creating a bit of a vacuum in here, which is actually going to not help our situation. But you can see that the gas number is still dropping. Anyways, we're fully empty. And now with that new pressure, it actually does fill up a little faster right away. So this system works. It does not seem that it's the fastest, to be honest. Just, I'm not timing it, but just off what I'm looking at. This one almost seemed faster, but honestly, this one seemed the fastest of all of them, where it was just a pressurized chamber with no relief valve. So it actually allows it to do this and that. It does not let the gas sort of dissipate. So this seemed to be the fastest system still. This, however, does seem to work. So the exact repercussions of these systems in terms of seconds, I do not know. But like this emptied out pretty fast actually. It's the pumping in that takes a little bit more time. You see it goes fast and then it kind of slows down as that pressure becomes the same as atmosphere here. But you can see that the number of, or the volume of liquid consistently is going up, like it's going. But anyway, this system works to an extent. Now over here we have our dual pump systems. So as we pump in this water, we're also pumping out the air. So let's see what happens. So it is increasing. And now this one is the same thing, except it has a gas filter. So we're only pumping out gas on the top, whereas this one we're pumping everything on the top. So eventually when this comes full, it'll start to pump out, the water will actually leave the system. So this system I would not use because you're actually going to end up pumping out the water out of the side here. So you see the water is leaving. So this is not the best. In this case here, it takes a little bit longer, but we filled it up. And then if we go to pump out and watch the pressure, it leaves very fast. So that was, I'd say that works, all things told. Now these are the counterintuitive ones, where we're pumping in the water and pumping in air. Except over here in this case there is no filter, and in this case there is a filter. So I'm going to turn them both on more or less at the same time and watch what happens. It seems to be going approximately the same speed, but again we're pumping in air and pumping in water. So again, looks to be fairly similar. The left one's a little higher. In this case we have higher pressure here, and that's for some reason. I mean, we should be just pumping in air. There is no water in the system around us. Okay, so between these two, this one is faster with the filters. And if we go to pump out, that one actually gets rid of everything very fast. And we'll go for a second trial run. Again, it gets to about halfway and slowly tapers off. It seems that both of these systems work, but again, exactly the repercussions of the different pressures that we're seeing here and how they impact the tank, I'm not quite sure. I would say between these two, this one's better. So to use the relief valve on this for the gas. But all things told, for me, I would say the safest bet is just to have this, where you just have, if you're wanting to pump in water, you just put water on your pump. Otherwise, you don't even change the amount of pressure inside here. You just let it stick to what it is. I would call that the safest bet. I mean, see, now you're creating a vacuum in here. The pressure is very low, but that's actually going to help you when you're trying to pump in, I believe. It's going to make it pump in very fast. So that's not awful. So for me, this is my favorite test for out of these guys. If we look at this one here, this one does not, or they both have filters, sorry. Yeah, they both have filters. The difference is this one has the liquid on the bottom and this one does not. If we go to drain them, let's just compare these two now. Yeah, they both seem to taper out at the bottom a little bit. My gut is telling me the left side is better because you just have more filters on everything. So in this case, the pump should be only pumping in liquid. The relief valve should only be relieving the gas. And we kind of go from there. As you can see, the right one filled up much faster. And that's interesting because that pump did not have a liquid relief valve. So the liquid filter was not there. So it allowed gas and liquid to come through, whereas this one should only be allowing liquid to come through, so it's not working quite as fast. So that is interesting. I think both these work. I mean, what the right one works slightly better, so the counterintuitive one, meaning you don't have a filter on your pump, you just pump in everything, but then you relieve the gas pressure, which makes it kind of similar to that one, because over there you pump in only, you have a filter, and then you pump in and out without a relief, whereas here you're pumping everything in and then relieving the gas from this chamber, whereas here you're relieving gas from the chamber, but you're only pumping in liquid anyways. So both work. I'd say this one works slightly better, so in my opinion the counterintuitive one, but whatever. There's one filter, so that kind of works. And then between these ones here, what we said is that you have a system where you have the filters. So regardless, the filter systems work better, meaning filters on the air coming out. So, but the downside to this is that you now need more pumps. Like you literally have to retrofit your systems to add these pumps on the top, whereas this one you literally don't do anything other than add a filter to this. So on my ships I'm probably going to stick with this, to be honest. I will tell you guys now, I'm probably going to put a simple fluid filter, what I'm going to call it liquid filter, and just allow liquid into my ballast tanks and leave it at that. Yeah, it's going to stagger a little bit like this, unfortunately. If I'm feeling fancy, I might do something like this where I have a gas relief valve. Well, maybe this is the easiest. In this case, I don't have to change anything. I just leave it as it is, put a gas relief valve, and voila. You then have a system that works, and it seems to be a little bit faster than the other one from what I see here. Like it'll pump in and out at a faster rate than what we had over there. So this is probably the optimal. You leave your pumps as they are, no filter, nothing, as long as they're beneath the water line, and then you have a gas relief valve on the top to make sure that the pressure is dissipated a little bit. You can see here, if I turn this off, this is going to start to drop. So it doesn't work instantaneously, but it does work eventually, and this will drop to atmospheric pressure. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for correcting my mistake and bringing to my attention the proper way of doing this. This test is now more realistic to what we have. The previous one still did work because some of the conclusions are the same, but this was interesting. I thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more creations, more content, and more Stormworks stuff. Take care, everyone.